What if I told you that the richest people on Earth rarely keep large amounts of cash in their bank accounts? It sounds impossible, because most people spend their entire lives trying to save money. We are taught that cash equals security. Save more, keep money in the bank, build an emergency fund, and one day, you'll be financially free. But billionaires play by an entirely different set of rules. A rule so powerful that understanding it could completely change the way you think about money forever. Because while ordinary people work for money, and save money, and protect money, billionaires do something shocking. They avoid holding cash whenever possible. In fact, some billionaires have debts worth billions of dollars, while simultaneously becoming even richer every single year. How is that possible? How can someone borrow billions while their wealth keeps growing? Why would someone with unimaginable wealth choose debt over cash? And what financial secret do they understand that most people never learn? Tonight, we're diving deep into the hidden financial strategies of the world's wealthiest people. And by the end of this video, you'll understand why billionaires don't think in terms of dollars. They think in terms of assets. And once you understand this game, you'll never look at money the same way again. Let's start with a question. Imagine I give you $10 million in cash. Right now, would you feel rich? Of course, almost everyone would. But here's the problem. The moment you keep that cash sitting idle, you start losing money. Not physically, mathematically, because cash has an invisible enemy: inflation. Inflation quietly destroys purchasing power, year after year, without making any noise. $100 today doesn't buy what it bought 10 years ago, and 10 years from now, it will buy even less. This means every dollar sitting idle is slowly shrinking in value. Think about it. If inflation averages 3% annually, then after 20 years, a huge portion of your purchasing power simply disappears. And billionaires understand this better than anyone. They know cash is not an asset. Cash is merely a tool, a temporary parking place. Holding too much cash is like keeping a sports car in the garage forever. The car has potential, but it's going nowhere. Money must move. Money must work. Money must produce. Because idle cash is dying cash, and billionaires hate dead money. Here's the biggest difference between wealthy people and everyone else. Average people collect money. Billionaires collect assets. What's an asset? An asset is something that puts money into your pocket. A business, real estate, stocks, intellectual property, ownership. Every billionaire understands one principle. Assets create cash. Cash does not create assets by itself. Look at some of the wealthiest people on Earth. Their money isn't sitting in checking accounts. Their wealth is tied up in companies, shares, investments, businesses, factories, technology, infrastructure. These assets keep growing. They produce income, they appreciate in value, and most importantly, they compound. Compounding is one of the most powerful forces in finance. Money creates more money, which creates even more money, and eventually, the growth becomes explosive. This is why billionaires obsess over acquiring assets instead of storing cash, because every dollar sitting idle is a missed opportunity. Now here's where things become truly fascinating. Many billionaires have surprisingly little cash relative to their net worth. Imagine someone worth $50 billion. You might think they have $50 billion sitting in a bank account. Not even close. Their wealth exists on paper. It's tied to ownership. If the value of their companies rises, their wealth increases. If their companies decline, their wealth decreases. Most of it isn't cash, and they prefer it that way because selling assets creates consequences: taxes, lost ownership, missed future growth. So instead of selling assets, they borrow against them. Yes, borrow. This is one of the biggest secrets in wealth building. A billionaire owns shares worth billions. A bank sees those shares as collateral. The bank offers a massive loan. The billionaire receives cash without selling ownership. No assets are liquidated. The investments continue growing, and often, the borrowed money is invested again. Think about that. The assets keep appreciating. The billionaire gains liquidity, and ownership remains intact. This strategy changes everything. Most people fear debt because they experience bad debt, credit cards, consumer loans, financing liabilities, debt that makes them poorer. But billionaires use debt differently. They use productive debt, debt that acquires income-producing assets. Imagine borrowing money to buy an apartment building. The tenants pay rent. The rent covers expenses. The property appreciates. Your debt slowly becomes smaller relative to the asset's value. Meanwhile, your wealth grows. This is how many fortunes are built. Debt itself isn't good or bad. It's simply a tool. Like fire. Fire can destroy a house or cook a meal. Used intelligently, debt becomes an engine for growth. Used carelessly, it becomes a trap. And billionaires understand the difference. Leverage. This single word has created more fortunes than almost any other concept in history. Leverage means using resources beyond your own. Other people's money, other people's time, other people's skills, other people's systems. The wealthy understand something most people don't. There are limits to working harder. There are limits to saving money. But there are almost no limits to leverage. One investment can generate income from thousands of customers. One company can employ thousands of workers. One piece of software can serve millions of people. This is leverage, and cash sitting in a bank has almost no leverage. Assets do, businesses do, investments do, ownership does. The rich don't ask, "How much money do I have?" They ask, "How many assets are working for me while I sleep?" Perhaps the biggest difference isn't financial, it's psychological. Most people see money as something to protect. The wealthy see money as something to deploy. Average thinking says, "How do I keep my money safe?" Wealth thinking says, "How do I make my money multiply?" This mindset changes every decision. Because money isn't the destination. Money is fuel, and fuel isn't meant to sit in a tank forever. It's meant to power something bigger. Billionaires don't worship cash. They worship productive assets, because assets create freedom. Assets create choices. Assets create generational wealth. Cash alone rarely does. Let's reveal one final truth. Keeping excessive cash can actually be risky. Inflation reduces purchasing power. Opportunities pass by. Businesses evolve. Technology changes. Markets move. And every year your idle money loses potential. Imagine two people. One saves $1 million in cash. The other owns $1 million in productive assets. 20 years later, who is likely wealthier? History gives us the answer. Ownership wins, again and again. Because assets grow, assets adapt, assets produce, cash waits, and waiting has a price. So, why do billionaires never keep cash? Because they understand something most people never learn. Cash is temporary. Assets are permanent. Cash loses value. Assets can create value. Cash waits. Assets work. Cash is consumed. Assets compound. This doesn't mean cash is useless. Everyone needs liquidity. Everyone needs emergency savings. But beyond a certain point, the world's wealthiest people move their money into things that grow: businesses, investments, ownership, systems. Because real wealth isn't measured by the amount of money sitting in a bank account. It's measured by the number of assets generating value every single day. The rich don't chase money. They build machines that produce money. And perhaps that's the greatest financial lesson of all. Stop asking, "How much cash do I have?" Start asking, "What assets do I own?" Because the answer to that question may determine your financial future. And maybe the reason billionaires seem to get richer every year isn't because they have more money than everyone else. It's because they understand one simple truth. Money sleeping in a bank account stays money, but money invested in productive assets has the power to become an empire.